Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Martin Hernandez, and I'm a senior program associate with the LA County Department of Arts and Culture. Thank you so much for coming to the Arts Internship Program application workshop today. The purpose of this workshop is to orient you to the program, go over all of the requirements, and give you time to think and talk about what makes a successful application. We'll also give you a little preview of what to expect when you access the online application system. For the duration of this session, please feel free to utilize the chat function for your questions, and I will stop periodically to review those questions. So you don't have to wait for me to ask for questions, drop them in the chat, and periodically I will come through and answer those. I do want to note that this session is being recorded so that folks who are not able to attend our session can access this information later. If you'd like to keep your camera off for the duration of the session as a result, then we certainly understand. So as we begin, we want to pause and acknowledge the first peoples of this ancestral territory that was seized from them, often violently so, the land today that we call Los Angeles County. With respect to elders past and present, we recognize the Tongva, Tataviam, and Chumash as the original stewards of this land, air, and water, and support them as they continue to lift up their stories and cultures. Our intent with this statement is to show respect, honor the truth, and encourage more substantive, sustained action to correct the false narratives and hostile practices that seek to erase Indigenous peoples' histories and cultures. With this statement, we acknowledge that colonialization is an ongoing process, with native lands still occupied due to deceptive and broken treaties. Our aim is to counter the destructive doctrine of discovery with true stories of the people who were already here, and to actively engage in repairing relationships and restorative collaboration with Native communities. In collaboration with the LA City County Native American Indian Commission, we have been engaging since March of this year with local tribal leaders on the development of a county-wide land acknowledgement, with the intent to also develop toolkits and other resources for county agencies and cultural institutions, and to share with our grantees and other municipalities. We'll continue to update you as these become available. Thank you. So we're going to start off by talking a little bit about the program vision and impact for the Arts Internship Program. First, some background. Some of you might be familiar with the Getty Merrill Multicultural Undergraduate Internship Program. Our internship program is a sister program to the Gettys, which was launched in 1993, and our program launched a few years later in the year 2000. The two programs have since run on parallel tracks and together constitute the largest paid arts internship program for college students in the country. We are grateful to the Getty for their longstanding support of this program since its inception. On the screen, you can see the vision statement for the program. This language, which we revised in 2020, acknowledges that students gain a wide variety of benefits from the experience, regardless of whether or not they ultimately pursue a career in the arts. We believe that through the program, both the experience within your organization, as well as through the educational components that we provide, they will gain skills that are transferable to contexts inside and outside of the arts. And it's something that we like to highlight, that obviously, while this program has an emphasis on the arts, we see a lot of value cross-discipline for students of all different backgrounds. On the screen, you can see the vision statement for the program. Excuse me, sorry, I just said that. So to date, more than 2,500 students have participated in this program. And one of the wonderful things we've seen in the last decade plus is the increasing number of former interns who are popping up in leadership positions all over LA County. We even now have former interns returning as mentors for various pieces of the program. Of course, the year 2020 marked the 20th anniversary of the program and came with another important milestone. Cumulatively, all the interns in the history of the program have contributed over 1 million hours of work to the field, which we think is very spectacular. So now that you know a little bit about the history and impact of the program, let's talk through organizational eligibility. Firstly, this is a grant program for organizations, not for individuals. You must be a nonprofit arts organization that has had its 501c3 status for at least 2 years. Now for us, arts means performing, presenting, literary, or municipal. It does not include visual arts organizations or museums. Those are funded through the Getty program and as such are not eligible for our program. You also cannot be part of a college or university. Fiscally sponsored organizations are okay, so long as your fiscal sponsor is located in California and you are under a Model A arrangement. Your fiscal sponsor must also be willing and able to handle all payments and contracting that is required by the program. If this is your first time applying or you are newly returning as a fiscally sponsored organization, you will be asked to submit proof of this at the end of the application. And we're going to be discussing this more later because this is actually new for the program. I want to be clear, fiscally sponsored organizations have been eligible for the internship program for a few years, but we are tightening up our language a little bit to be more in alignment with our organizational grant program and community impact arts grant program. If you're familiar, our organizational grant program, our OGP, actually is just recently started opening their program up to fiscally sponsored organizations, but it's through the Model A type fiscal sponsorship only. So we've put a little bit more parameters and more guidelines and language for us on the internship side of things, which is what you will see mentioned a few times today. This is, of course, a county program, so you must be based here in Los Angeles County. That means that your offices and organization must be physically located here and that your mission is to serve residents of this region. You must be an actively functioning organization, meaning you have a board that meets regularly with more than half of your board members living here in California. You must also put on a minimum of 4 programs or performances per year, either virtual or in person, and of course adhere to all applicable labor and fair hiring practices. Grantees of our Community Impact Arts program, grantees of our Community Impact Arts Grant Program, also known as CIAG, are also able to apply as long as they are in good standing with their CIAG grant and have current arts programming. These organizations are typically social justice and social service organizations who have arts programming and are contributing great internship opportunities to the pool each year. We extended the internship program to CIAGs beginning in 2020, I believe, and have become really, really grateful for their proposals each year. They provide really exciting opportunities for students to see the arts at the intersection of some of these other disciplines. And so we're very excited to have them as part of the program. So if you, again, have either a current CIAG applicant or a former CIAG applicant, grantee, you are able to apply for this program. Again, if you are part of a college or a university, or if you work for a visual arts organization such as an art museum, you are not eligible. Bear in mind, though, that the Getty program is open to you. They have a separate application process that will open in a few months. And if you're interested in knowing more about that program, please feel free to connect with me after this, and I'm happy to connect you over to the Getty side. I typically pause here for questions, but I don't see any in the chat just yet, so I'm going to go ahead and keep going. So what do you get if your applications are awarded? Let's talk a little bit about grant amounts and awards. So the numbers that we're going to be talking about today are commensurate with the numbers that actually ended up that we actually contracted for with grantees in the current internship cycle 2022. What ended up happening is last year for the 2022 cycle, we were assuming that we would just be paying the interns the same $15 an hour wage that we have been for the past couple of years. And then we found out very last minute that the city of Los Angeles was increasing their minimum wage to $16.04. So we had to initiate a middle of the year contract change, not middle of the year, but right before contracts were supposed to go out. We had to send a memo to everybody to notify everyone that actually the payment to interns had gone up. So for this current, for the AIP 2023 and moving forward, the interns will be receiving $16.04 an hour, which ultimately changes the grant amounts. So what you see here is that each organization will be awarded anywhere between $6,416 to $7,166 per intern. This grant is meant to be used to hire an undergraduate intern for 400 hours during the duration of your project. How much you are eligible for depends on your budget size. So this table breaks down the size of the awards based on your organization's budget. As you can see, an organization with a budget under $500,000 is allowed to request a maximum of 2 interns, which would yield a maximum grant amount of $14,332. Before I go on, I want to note that organizations with budgets under $500,000 will receive an additional $750 administrative stipend per position. That's important, per position, to help offset additional costs of hosting an intern. This can include things like this can include things like purchasing equipment, covering payroll tax, mileage reimbursement, etc. Finally, organizations with budgets over $500,000 may request up to 3 interns, which would be a maximum grant amount of $19,248. Organizations with budgets over $500,000 are not eligible to receive the $700 administrative stipend. Now, you'll notice that there's a note here regarding organizations who request a minimum of 3 positions. In 2017, the Board of Supervisors passed the Cultural Equity and Inclusion Initiative that instructed our department to look into the ways we could expand our programming to be more equitable and inclusive to all folks in the region. As part of that initiative, the internship program was expanded from 132 positions, where it had been for many years, to 178 positions. This allowed organizations for the first time to request up to 3 interns. However, that expansion came with a mandate that of the total internship pool, at least 28 positions need to go to students at the community colleges who had historically been underrepresented in our program. As such, if your organization is requesting 3 interns, you must reserve at least one of those positions for a community college student if you are awarded. Your organization will get to choose which of the 3 positions will go to a community college student if selected to be a community college host. And we will, of course, work with your organization in the event that your recruitment efforts do not yield community college applicants. If you are unable to recruit a student from the community colleges, we will not take your grant away. Since this initiative was introduced, I'm happy to report that we've seen quite the increase in community college students into the program for previous years. And now that we're a few years into the pandemic, I can say that our community college numbers have still stayed strong, even during the pandemic. We were traditionally looking at anywhere between 5 to 10 on average community college students participating each year, and we haven't dropped below 24 since we initiated this initiative in 2018. So we're really, really proud of it, of that, and that is a direct result of the hard work and effort our grantee organizations are putting in to support students from the community colleges. So we love it. Regardless of the size of your grant award, all interns are paid the same amount. So as you can see, the salary for interns for the 2023 cycle is the $16.04 an hour rate. That is the same rate that we paid interns in this current cycle, AIP 2022. It will be what it is moving forward. In the event that minimum wages rise again, we'll reevaluate. But for the 2023 cycle, all interns are paid $16.04 an hour, which is how we get to our grant amounts, as you can see. So regardless of the size of your grant awards, like I said, all interns are paid the same amount. You do need to plan for additional costs. And for new organizations, recruitment is going to be part of that, right? If this is your first time participating in the program, first time getting an intern, you're gonna need to plan for some resources to actually be out there and get, the intern hired. So that's something that you wanna be thinking about just in terms of the total overhead costs of this grant. Because again, if your organization has a budget over $500,000, you're not getting that additional $750. So you would need to plan for that accordingly. One frequent question we get is, where do taxes fit into all of this? Remember that the grant is to the organization, not the intern. The intern will be hired by your organization as a regular employee in most cases. If you use a payroll service, then your intern should be put on payroll, meaning he or she will receive the $6,416 minus taxes. If you do not have a payroll service and you pay your intern the full amount, you will need to issue a 1099 at the end of the year to that intern. Payroll is highly recommended for all organizations given AB5. Your organization must comply with all labor laws when hiring the intern. Unfortunately, our staff are not lawyers or legal counsel, so it is up to your organization to determine what your determine that with your resources for bringing the intern in. Okay, again, this is typically where I pause for questions, and I'm not seeing any, so I'm gonna keep moving forward. Again, please don't wait. If you have a question, please feel free to drop it in the chat and I will be sure to answer it. Now let's talk a little bit about program requirements, timeline, and intern eligibility. We talked earlier about the organizational eligibility requirements, but there are other things we look for in organizations that participate. Ultimately, we are really looking for organizations who are truly able to take on an intern during the program, meaning that the student will not be banished to a desk in a closet or asked to fend for themselves. I should probably update that example these days and say banished to their house working on a laptop, never to step foot in the office. I think that might be a little bit more of a concern these days. But ultimately, we're looking at the organization's capacity to recruit, select, train, and mentor an intern, which we consider to be paramount. We did add some new questions regarding the organization's approach to mentoring an intern, and the panel does look closely at that to get a sense of how your organization will approach the program, and I'm going to call those questions out in just a few minutes. There is also paperwork and data collection involved with this process. And I'd like to say that it's not a lot. Maybe it feels like a lot to the grantees, but ultimately, we're a government agency. So there are things that we need to be collecting and ensuring that we're getting from both the supervisors and the intern. Also, any organization that is new to the program is required to attend our supervisor orientation that is typically held in partnership with the Getty. As I mentioned before, they've been our partners since the year 2000, and we're very grateful for them. I know people chafe under the term required, but the feedback from this event is overwhelmingly positive, and we work hard to make sure it is an informational event for everyone in attendance. Many of the folks here today have been a part of the program in the past. You will know that over the past couple of years, us and the Getty Foundation have really tried to move supervisor orientation into a professional development space where we are equipping supervisors as mentors with the skills that they need to support interns in both of our programs. It is very much so our intention to do the same next year. So it is required, but we hope that it's useful and that supervisors are able to implement some of that information when their interns actually show up a few months later. So the program timeline, we are of course over here on the left in the application period. The application will close on Wednesday, October 12th, at which point we will move into the review of applications with the goal of hosting our panel in December or January. That will allow us to notify organizations of their awards by mid-February and move into contracting. Positions will be posted on our website on a rolling basis starting April 3rd, 2023. So that is what you can see over here. I'll explain more about this in a minute, but in the application, you will choose which first of the month you would like your position launched to our website so that you can begin recruitment. April 1st is the first launch date of the program, meaning any organizations who wanted their positions to be posted on April 1st will be able to begin recruitment on that day. The earliest an intern will be able to begin their internship is June 1. All 400 hours of the internship must be completed by March 1st of 2024. So again, lots of returning grantees in the pool, but just for the sake of clarity for folks that might be watching this later, the Arts Internship Program has had to undergo many changes in light of COVID-19. Folks that were grantees of our program before the pandemic will remember that the program used to only operate in the summer, meaning that interns would all start basically in June and all need to finish their internships by August, and there was no flexibility. When the pandemic hit, we decided to make the internship program a little bit more of a year-round opportunity, which is great, but with great power comes great responsibility. So it does require that organizations be a little bit more thoughtful in terms of the planning of their internships. But the hard deadline is March 1st of 2024 for these internships to be completed. There will be no exceptions to this deadline. It's going to be in the contract. So please just keep that in mind. So now let's talk a little bit about who you can hire in the event that you are awarded. So intern eligibility, when you decide to hire when you move out into the recruitment phase of the program and you are starting to connect with your potential applicants, we do have some very specific requirements that you need to be paying attention to when you are making offers or when you are interviewing and hiring candidates. Intern candidates in this program must be currently enrolled undergraduates at either a 4-year or community college. We define enrolled as being signed up for at least one class at the time of application. Those who will complete their undergraduate degree between May 1st and December 1st of next year, 2023, are also eligible. We consider them recent grads. And the student must either be a resident of LA County or go to school in LA County. What do I mean by that? If I grew up in Sylmar, my parents still live in Sylmar, which I actually did grow up in Sylmar, but I go to school in New York, I'm eligible for the program because I have a residential address here in LA County. The reverse is also true. If I grew up in New York, but I'm attending school in LA County, let's say at USC or UCLA, then I am eligible for the program by virtue of my attendance at a school within LA County. So very important to just remember, we talk way more about this once folks are awarded, especially at supervisor orientation. I make these reminders all the time, but the big note here is that this is not, this program does have parameters in terms of the students that we're looking to support. These are county tax dollars. We want to make sure that they're going to folks and supporting folks within LA County. And so that is what guides ultimately our intern eligibility requirements. So some things that might make an intern ineligible, even if they meet some of those other requirements. They may not have a prior bachelor's or higher degree. So if they have a master's or a PhD and they go back to the community colleges because they want to pursue a different area of study, they are ineligible because they have an advanced degree already. They also cannot have participated in the internship program before. And I say this a million times during supervisor orientation. We really suggest that our grantee organizations ask that question of their applicants during the interview process, just to make sure that you're catching that in the event that that happens. We have a database, believe it or not, of the names of every single student that has participated in the program. And you will have to submit that information to me at some point to get the intern vetted and approved in the program. So it's good to ask. This is a one-time participation only. This is not to disparage anyone or any of the interns. It's simply that we know if left to their own devices, the internship program, it would be likely that the same interns will get hired year after year. And we want to make sure that these opportunities are available to as many students as possible. And last, but certainly not least, the intern candidate cannot be a previous staff member or the relative of a staff or board member at your organization. So we get a lot of concerns about nepotism when I am out talking to students about this program. So we need to, work on that as much as possible. Those individuals are welcome to apply for internships at other organizations, but they cannot apply or be awarded an internship at the organization where they have that connection. So again, they might meet some of those other eligibility requirements that we reviewed on the other slide, but if any of these things are at play, then that would make them ineligible. Okay, so we're about to do a deep dive into the structure of your internship proposals, but first I want to be clear about two things. One, because of the uncertainty of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are asking you to submit internship proposals that can be completed on site with the option of 100 hours being worked remotely. Should there be any changes to the public health guidance that will affect internships, the department will be in contact with grantees as soon as possible. Secondly, all equipment an intern needs to complete their internship must be provided by the organization. That most commonly takes the form of a company-issued laptop or computer. This is the case regardless of whether or not the intern is working on site or remotely. Okay, so there's been some confusion in the prior years thinking that, okay, or in the past year, okay, well, the intern's working remotely, we're really never going to interface with them so they can use their own equipment and that's fine. No, want to be very clear that if you are applying for this internship, you are understanding that your organization will need to make arrangements to provide the intern all of the necessary equipment that they need to do their internship, whether or not they are on site. So be thinking about that. It's something that has come up many times in applications. Folks will say something like, the intern can use their own equipment as part of their application. And that is an immediate sign to panel that you have not read the guidelines and that you did not catch this. So please make sure that your organization is making those arrangements and that the equipment is provided to them as necessary. A note on the 400 hours. In the application, your organization will choose the launch date of the position, which is ultimately when you can begin recruitment. How many hours the intern will work a week, which is anywhere between 15 to 40 hours a week. And from there, you will need to determine the start and end dates for the intern. As I said before, with great power comes great responsibility. This gives your organization a much greater flexibility in terms of the type of internship project you want to propose. However, it does require significant advanced planning. So let's give an example. Let's say that an organization has a project beginning in June, ending in September that they want support with for an intern. So they're looking to have their intern start as soon as possible, which in this case would be June 1st, 2023. And I think that's on coming up. So on another slide, so we'll talk about that. That organization has decided that their intern will be working 15 hours a week. 400 hours at 15 hours a week is a 27-week internship, meaning that the intern will not complete their hours until the first or second week of December. If the organization has not planned properly, then the intern may not have enough work to complete after their programming concludes in September. Similarly, an intern cannot start a 15-hour-a-week internship in December, as that internship would need to end at the end of June. So what we are asking you to do in the application is be doing some math, right? You know, you're identifying what project you want the internship to work on. You need to make sure that what you're proposing in terms of the launch date of the internship, their work number of hours per work a week, plus the duration of the project all line up. And that is something, like I said, it on the surface is great for organizations and for grantees because you have way more flexibility, certainly, than we did before the pandemic. But what we're seeing now, several years into this format, is that organizations are losing track of a little bit of those details, and interns are not completing their internship on time. Or what is most likely to happen if an intern has some kind of setback, they need to change their schedule, then there's not enough time left in the program for the intern to complete those hours. So very, very important that your organization is doing the work now and thinking about these things before submitting the application. As you can see, it will be crucial for your organization to think through the intern project, how many hours you want the intern to work a week, start and end dates, as well as the time it will take to recruit students. It is the responsibility of the organization to track the intern hours and work with the student to ensure that all 400 hours are completed by March 1st of 2024. I've highlighted this in the presentation because this year, many applicants glanced over this section of the application or misunderstood the ramifications, so please plan accordingly. Okay, so as I mentioned, significant advanced planning, things that you need to be thinking about. In any event where an intern is required to work more than 8 hours a day or more than 40 hours a week, overtime must be paid to the intern. Flexing hours within a work week is not allowed, and it's actually illegal by California law. So we strongly discourage organizations from allowing interns to take time off for vacations or other extended trips, as it will affect your originally proposed timeline. For holidays, we ask that you follow your organizational protocol and treat them according to your paid holiday policy, meaning that if the intern is hired as a full-time employee, then the full-time holiday employee rules would apply. If the intern is hired as a part-time employee, then the same holiday hour rules would apply for them as a part-time employee. I will say, of course, given the more flexible timeline, it has become more common for interns to now say, hey, I'm going to take a week off for this, or I think I've seen, interns have finals weeks and they're asking, can I just take this week off to focus on school? We do have a little bit more flexibility, but as I've said before, I will probably say 4 more times before I get off here today, with that flexibility comes a lot more responsibility on your organizations. And I have now seen over the past couple of years, many a organization not be able to have an intern complete those 400 hours on time because the timeline got away from them. So very, very important that you paying close attention to that. Some additional information to keep in mind: if your proposal overlaps with the school year, you are expecting an intern to be able to work at your internship and attend school at the same time, which means it is highly unlikely that they will be able to work 30 to 40 hours a week if your internship starts in September, right? So again, all things that you need to be thinking about before you're submitting this application, right? Because this application that you're submitting becomes what we use to generate the job postings later on down the line should your organization be awarded, right? So things we need to be thinking about now. You must also factor in time for recruitment. I've said it many times over the past couple of years, COVID has really changed recruitment for this program. And so your organization needs to budget both time and staff time and resources to recruiting for this program, whether it's social media posts, e-blasts, website postings, all of those kinds of things. You need to factor in time for recruitment. It is taking organizations much longer to find interns these days than it did before the pandemic. So please think about that. Please keep in mind that students do not have to have previous experience in the arts, so you can cast a wide net. I think obviously a lot of our organizations, specifically reach out to the arts departments at a lot of schools. Maybe that's where they have connections themselves or might be faculty themselves, but we do not require a student to be majoring in the arts to participate in this program. So you can go very wide with those postings. The intern will also have the opportunity to participate in educational events. Those events will be announced at a later date that are also paid as part of those 400 hours. So you need to keep in mind that a handful of those hours each year will need to be spent going to a peer group event. Or this year we hosted an event called Intern Day Out, which actually happened this previous Sunday. You know, interns were supposed to be paid to participate as part of that. So just keep in mind, you will have to be a little bit flexible with those hours and allow the intern to be able to attend some of those events. The Arts Department is committed to cultural equity and inclusion. All participating organizations are strongly encouraged to recruit and select students of diverse backgrounds, including students with disabilities. So I mentioned those launch dates. Here are the 4 launch dates that will be utilized for the 2023 cycle. So again, think about when you want to launch relative to when your internship starts. I will tell you that the earlier, the better, but not always. You know, you don't want a position posted in April that you don't have any intent of hiring for until September or October, because what will happen is you get all of these resumes, all of this interest, and then when you go to talk to them in August, let's say, they're gonna have selected other internships, they're gonna have taken up other opportunities. So think a little bit about what makes the most sense. Again, given your needs as an organization, and also write this down on your calendars somewhere. I cannot tell you, for the past couple of years, we've had a lot of panicked grantees that assumed that they said they wanted their position to launch on April 3rd, but in their application, it actually said June 1st. And by the time they catch that, there's nothing I can do. We build each one of these 228 positions manually by hand based off of the application information that was submitted in the application. So we have very little flexibility when it comes to changing these dates. So again, please be thinking about them now as you're submitting the application. I'm going to pause because there's a question that came in before I move forward. The question is, do you think this timeline flexibility will be a permanent change to the program? If I had a crystal ball, I'd use it for a lot of things. This question certainly being one of them. What I will say is we have had continued extremely positive feedback from supervisors and grantees about this program timeline and the flexibility that is afforded to grantees under this new structure. I think as long as grantees continue to be vocal about their support of this format and continue to let me know that, you know, this is helpful in terms of navigating COVID and, you know, return to work policies and all of those things, my hope is that it will stay. I think we've seen a lot of advancements when it comes to equity and accessibility in particular. I think having internships that are available for less hours a week is a huge selling point, especially for our friends and our students at the community colleges. So again, if your organization is really appreciative of this new format, keep saying that in surveys, keep letting us know, because that really helps me take that back to our authorizers to continue to fight for this format. And again, you know, I keep thinking that maybe folks will say, hey, we miss the old format in large numbers, but I'm getting a lot of positive messaging that the new format is preferred. So keep that up and hopefully it will continue to be around. But certainly, as long as we are living with COVID, you know, this is a format that we feel like works both for us as well as the organizations and the interns. And again, my hope is that we will keep that going for the time being at the very least. Great question. Okay. So that constitutes the basic of the program. So now I want to pivot by discussing what elements we want you to consider when crafting a successful internship proposal. Now, it's very likely that many of us may have been interns at one point. So I want you to just take a moment to reflect on that. If you feel open to sharing and using the chat, feel free to answer the question you see on the screen. In your experience, what is one aspect to a successful internship experience? I'm going to take a second to grab a drink of water. If you would like to drop some responses into that, into the chat box for that question. And again, we have a lot of folks that are returning, so I would love to hear, based off your experience, what is one aspect of a successful internship experience for you? So while we wait for some responses, I'll just share that one thing I will offer is, some intentionality and, purpose behind the intern work, I think is very important. Interns have a I'm seeing this. Let me say it because this got said better in the chat than I was about to say it. So the comment here is feeling like the intern is contributing something meaningful to the organization versus doing only busy work. Thank you so much for that. Exactly what I was thinking. Interns have a really great knack for knowing when they're just kind of there to do the busy work or paper pushing. So, again, thinking as much as possible about the intent of having these interns here and what it is that they're going to be working on is certainly one element of a successful internship experience that I would argue. Thank you so much for contributing that. So successful projects can really run the gamut, but usually fall into some of the categories that you see here. I'm seeing another note. I think it's really important to guide interns to voice their opinions and help them feel confident. Absolutely, especially because each year, the majority of interns note that this is their first full-time or part-time paid work experience usually, right? So thinking about building some of those ground level skills, definitely. So as I mentioned, successful projects can run the gamut, but usually fall into the categories you see here. Ultimately, we want proposals that are substantive. They should not be doing a backlog of projects that everyone else has avoided. We use the filing example a lot. However, we all know that jobs include a degree of filing or other paperwork. We're not saying that there can't be any of that, but it shouldn't constitute the majority of the intern's work project. Please note that a common mistake we see in these applications is framing the proposal as a staff position. While we want there to be substantive work for the intern, they are not a substitute for staffing gaps in your organization. I'm going to say that sentence again. While we want there to be a substantive work for the intern, they are not a substitute for staffing gaps in your organization. That is probably the #1 panel comment that we see on declined applications. Position reads too much as a staff filling and as an attempt to fill a staffing gap, not an internship. Right? So it is a little bit of a balancing act. You want to be able to give them enough responsibilities to make the work feel important and vital, but not throw everything at them because ultimately you need a development person or a programs person, and this is your opportunity to fill that, right? Our panelists are very, very sensitive to this. And so again, please make sure that you are, walking that fine line. In addition to being rooted in a clear project, please consider these additional elements. We ask you for learning objectives. They should be clear. What is it that you are hoping an intern will learn by virtue of participating in this internship? What meaningful on-the-job training and work experience can you give this intern? Excellent communication between the intern and the supervisor, a concrete project, adequate workspace dedicated to an intern. I should add, maybe that also means adequate virtual check-ins or virtual communication with an intern to support them if they're working remotely. Sufficiently challenging responsibilities, as well as integration into organization via well thought out orientation. And I think this is probably right now where I could say that I think a lot of organizations need to spend a little bit more time is what is the intentionality of onboarding this intern into the organization, especially if they're going to be doing the majority of their internship remotely, right? So things we want you to be thinking about and potentially speaking to as part of the application. So we strongly recommend checking out this year's positions. You can go to our website. The 2022 positions are still up because we are still recruiting. We have about 30 positions in the current cycle that have yet to be filled. So you can actually go to our website right now and get a look at those. If you're a first-time applicant, highly recommend kind of getting a sense of what it is that other organizations are doing. It can be fruitful thought process for discussion later on. So I just briefly want to talk about our panel review process so you can all get a sense of what that process looks like, as it does look a little bit different than some of our other grant programs. Panelists will be looking for evidence that you have given some thought to what your intern will be doing over the program cycle and how what they will be doing will benefit the intern. What meaningful and transferable skills will they learn? As a result, we do ask that you identify a specific primary project for the intern and tell us what that project is. I would say that that's the second most common comment that we get on rejected applications is from panelists, is that the project was not clearly defined enough, right? We want to see details. We want to see what it is the intern is going to be working on. So please make sure that you are speaking to that. We know that taking on an intern is an investment. So you could have the most amazing project in the world, but you must also have the time and capacity to take care of and support your intern in that work. One of the most consistent critiques we hear from interns, so this is on the intern side of things, is I loved my organization. They do great work, but they don't need an intern. They need more staff. As I said before, there's a balancing act required here. We want you to give your interns meaningful experience while also recognizing that they are signing up, for a short-term commitment. If you've participated before, panelists will also consider the organization's history with the program, and specifically whether there have been issues in the past regarding supervision or payment of the intern. All internship applications go through 2 levels of review. The first level of review is aimed at assessing the strength of the application and how well it meets the goals of the program. The second level of review is aimed at finalizing the pool based on a number of competing factors that you can see here on this slide. They include communities served, geography, meaning where the internship is located, discipline, cultural tradition represented, organizational budget size, type of internship project, and interest in and capacity to recruit and host community college students. This means that each year we have to reject internship proposals that are really strong and what could have been awarded otherwise, because we typically do not have enough internships to provide relative to the number of applications that we get. And sometimes in a panel feedback call, I will have to tell an organization, we simply couldn't award this position because we had too many marketing internships, let's say, or too many positions located in downtown Los Angeles, or too many internships that were focused on marketing, right? So again, we get typically more applications for internships than we can actually award. So sometimes an internship is not awarded, not because it wasn't a quality application, but because we are trying to balance all of these things that you're seeing here to make sure that there are a wide breadth of opportunities, both for interns and organizations across the county in terms of hosting these interns. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about supplemental materials. So if you are not a current grantee of our organizational grant program or community impact arts program and were not awarded interns in this current cycle, 2022, then you will need to provide these additional documents. We will need to see a copy of the organization's 501c3 determination letter. In addition, we will also need to see a copy of one of the following. The organization's SMU Data Arts OGP Funder Report, which is recommended as described in more detail below, or a copy of an audited financial statement, or a financial report prepared by an accountant and signed by the board president or chair, or signed federal tax return, or one copy of the organization's in addition to that, one copy of the organization's list of board members, including names, professional affiliations, places of residence, and with officers identified by title. And we will also need one copy of a history and background of the organization, which is no more than 2 pages, single space, that includes the mission and purpose of the organization, a brief history of the organization, a description of the organization's constituency or community, a brief description of the administrative infrastructure of the organization, as well as a list of recent notable programming or projects. And for CIAG grantees, this must include a description of current arts programming. What this means is that if you are a current OGP grantee, a past CIAG grantee, or current CIAG grantee, or you awarded interns in the previous cycle, so 2022, then you do not have to submit these documents. It's one of the ways that we try to streamline internship for organizations that are participants in some of our other grant programs. We try to make this piece of the process at least a little bit more streamlined for you all if you are already receiving those grants from us or received internship from us last year. So, as I mentioned earlier, in order to bring alignment with our OGP and CIAG programs, Newly applying fiscally sponsored organizations that have a Model A arrangement with a verified state of California-based fiscal sponsor must also provide the following in the application: a copy of the agreement or verification letter from the fiscal sponsor. We want to see that it's a Model A fiscal arrangement. If it is any other type of model fiscal arrangement, then you would not be eligible for the program. And we will also need to see a copy of the fiscal sponsor's 990 listing the state of California address. So this is a new requirement, like I said, this year for fiscally sponsored organizations. If you are first time applying to this internship program or returning for the first time as a fiscally sponsored organization that's a Model A arrangement, we need to see these documents. If you are a returning fiscally sponsored organization that has participated in the program in the previous cycle, then you will not be asked to submit that. We're treating you as a current grantee, and you will not need to provide these documents. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to drop them in the chat or connect with me after. So I want to just highlight some questions from the application. The full list of questions is available on our website, but I wanted to list up some key questions that are the most scrutinized in the application. You can see them here on this side. On this slide. So the first question, describe the intern's primary project during the internship, detailing specific duties and responsibilities. As I mentioned earlier, panelists really want to see what it is that they are diving into, what is the work that they are diving into. So please make sure that you are spending time on that. In addition, describe the additional day-to-day activities of the intern beyond the primary project. What else might the intern be doing and getting exposure to? For organizations that are smaller, this could mean a lot. So detail it here. This is all part of your organization making a case for the really comprehensive experience that an intern might get if they are, at your organization. So you want to make sure that you are spending time with that. Again, we have this question about learning objectives. Not most of the time, but sometimes we see applicants kind of blow past this, or they kind of just list the primary responsibilities again. That's different than what you want an intern to learn, right? So spend some time on those learning objectives. What is it that you want an intern to take away? And we find that helps kind of guide the overall structure of the internship as well. And last, but certainly not least, please describe the supervisor's qualifications to supervise and mentor the intern. Maybe they've worked with students in the past. Maybe they've worked with interns in the past, right? Please make sure that you are speaking to that as part of the application. That is something, again, that gets scrutinized quite heavily by panelists. So some additional questions to note, we added these to the application in 2020. So we really want to make sure that folks are paying attention to this. So the first question here, the arts department is committed to cultural equity and inclusion. All participating organizations are strongly encouraged to recruit and select students of diverse backgrounds, including students with disabilities. Describe your organization's recruitment and hiring process for ensuring a diverse applicant pool. This first question invites you to think about your recruitment practices. This is a crucial element of the program. What can you do to ensure a diverse applicant pool? Note that some organizations who have participated in this program for years and who have fallen into patterns regarding how they rely on their networks have struggled with this question. There were years where simply our posting of all the internships on our website was more than enough for organizations to receive several resumes. Those days, sadly, have passed for some of us thanks to COVID. It's good to start thinking about it early, and note that if you are funded, there are additional recommendations that we can make via supervisor orientation to help round this out. The second question I'm going to read is as follows. The LA County Arts Internship Program seeks to ensure that all participating organizations provide their students with meaningful on-the-job training and mentorship. Briefly describe your organization's approach and experience regarding supporting future leaders. Please use specific examples of strategies you have used to mentor past interns. Additionally, if you have had difficulty with past interns, please highlight what you might do differently based off that experience. So for this question, we also want to know how you think about mentorship within your organization. As I mentioned previously, we've recognized the need to make our goals and intentions around the mentorship aspect of this program more explicit. This provides a space for you to reflect on your organizational attitude and philosophy towards welcoming a new person into your space for a short period of time. Also, If you have had a difficult internship in the previous grant cycle, this is also the space to elaborate on the lessons learned and what your organization is committed to doing differently should they be awarded again. So sometimes it is very obvious to the organization that there was not a good fit between the intern and the organization, right? So in addition to expanding on what it is that your organization thinks about when it comes to mentorship and how they approach it, in the event that you had a difficult internship experience the year prior, so that would be the current cycle, this is also your space to share your learnings, right? And I will just say that, as I mentioned earlier, we take the panel takes into account your previous performance in prior cycles when deciding on awards. So if you know that your intern was unhappy with the way that your internship went, they may have said something in that final survey to us, right, about how that went. You're gonna wanna address that in your application. You can say something like, we realized that our intern was not a good fit last year. And so here's how we're gonna ask better questions during the interview process, or here's how we're gonna approach mentorship, or maybe we're selecting a different supervisor who has a little bit more capacity and a different skill set. Do not miss out on this part in the application. If you need to spend some time talking about a difficult internship from the year prior, then this is the place to do that. Do not skip over it. Some final questions here before we get into navigating the online application. These are questions that we will ask if you indicate interest hosting a community college student, and they're really geared at understanding your existing connections with community colleges. These do not have a bearing on your award. It's really just informational for us in terms of understanding who out there might already have connections with the community colleges. So I mentioned previously that any organization that is requests 3 interns and is awarded 3 interns will be required to hold one of those positions for a community college student. But any organization during the application process can stand up electronically or raise their hand electronically and say, hey, Department of Arts and Culture, we would love to be a part of this effort to hire from the community colleges. So, again, any organization can identify as part of the application that you're interested in recruiting from the community colleges. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, please make sure that you answer these questions. And it's just helpful for us in knowing who has some of that work. So before we get into navigating the online application, here's a final reminder about important deadlines. So the deadline for the application is Wednesday, October 12th, 2022. We will be notifying grantees no later than February 17th of next year about their grant awards and hopefully sending contracts out around that time. The contracts will be due by March 3rd of 2023. And of course, the first positions posted online will be April 3rd, 2023. I snuck a new deadline in here because, and actually there's a typo, it should say 2023, so I apologize. But what we did this year for the first time seemed to help. We were pretty clear this year that, all organizations should be moving forward to have their interns hired by September 1st. We have some organizations that are really intentionally trying not to have their interns start until after September because they have certain projects that they want them to work on, and that's fine. But I'm putting this out there that, and actually, no, you know what? It is correct, 2024. Time traveling. I'm having to time travel. It's always hard when I'm in between grant cycles, so I apologize. But I'm just noting here that we will most likely have a suggested hiring deadline of September 1st, 2024. We did that again for the first time this year. We said, hey, you should really try to have your interns hired by September 1st. A lot of organizations heeded that call, which we appreciate. So just keeping in mind, we're going to be telling folks you should really try to have these internships hired by or filled by September 1st of next year. Gives you plenty of time to complete the internship because once we start heading into the fall with school schedules, the holidays, it becomes a little bit more of a nightmare. So just something to think in mind or keep in mind, excuse me. I'm going to pause for a second. Are there questions about any of that before I jump into the online grant portal? I'm not seeing any questions in the chat just yet, which hopefully means I've done an okay job explaining, but I'm going to pause for a quick minute just to see if there are any questions regarding any of that before I move forward. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward into our last segment here. So what I'm actually just going to cover now is the online grant portal, just take folks through how to, potentially create an account, just some tips and tricks about working with SurveyMonkey Apply. Myself, the grants team, my wonderful colleagues, Roz and Mara, who run the organizational grant program and community impact arts grant program. We were reminiscing a couple weeks ago about how when we moved to SurveyMonkey Apply from Fluid Review, it was a ton of work, not only for us, but for you all as grantees. Thank you for sticking with us as we made that transition. And I got to tell you, almost 3 years into using SurveyMonkey Apply, we are really, really happy with it as a platform. We hope that you all feel like it's straightforward enough when you're completing our grant applications. And we've been working a lot internally with our newly souped up IT team to continue to improve SurveyMonkey Apply. A lot of times we're making changes to the application that you all will never see, but we hope kind of facilitates a smoother transition and a smoother use of the system. So again, just thank you all for sticking with us. We go through these periods where we kind of have to test drive a grant management system for a couple of years and hope that, at the end of those years, we don't feel like we need to find a new one. And I think we're pretty happy with SurveyMonkey Apply, and it does a lot for us. And no more than internship. I use it a lot for this program. I'm constantly, of course, asking grantees to go into SurveyMonkey Apply to do things for the internship program. So it does a lot for us, and we're appreciative of it, and we hope that you all as well. So that being said, all applications and required materials must be submitted via the SurveyMonkey Apply online grants portal, which you can access via the website you see here on the screen. We do not accept any application materials via any other methods, carrier pigeon, snail mail, faxing. We have moved to a fully virtual environment and have been for many years. So please make sure that everything is being submitted through SurveyMonkey Apply. Some tips when thinking about the application: when you're creating a user profile for your organization, please make sure you click organization, not individual. We understand that that can be a little confusing because you are an individual creating an application, but ultimately you are doing it on behalf of an organization. So please keep that in mind. Please save your email and password. As a contact, you can easily access and share. So we get a lot of panicked emails throughout the year when there's staff turnover. Martin, we don't have our SurveyMonkey account login information. Can you send it to us? Just so you all know, we can do a lot as system administrators for SurveyMonkey Apply, but we are explicitly forbidden from handling anything regarding account ownership. So we cannot look up your password. We cannot reset your password. We cannot reset the email. All of that has to be handled through SurveyMonkey's team. So, write that down in a public place where other people can access it if necessary. Take advantage of us being online. But what I mean by that is you can go download the sample application from our website without ever looking at SurveyMonkey Apply, draft all of your questions in Microsoft Word, and then just copy and paste them into it. Of course, that gives you a backup document in the event that there's an issue with SurveyMonkey Apply. You have everything written down. And we, of course, suggest that you submit everything 5 days prior to the deadline to allow time to resolve any technical issues. I will be wrapping up my day at 5 o'clock exactly on October 12th, the deadline. We are not available after business hours on deadline days. And if you are trying to get a hold of us on the final deadline or trying to get a hold of SurveyMonkey on the final deadline, there's going to be very little that we're able to do to support you. So please get your applications in early to allow for technical issues or anything of the sort. You do not want to wait until the last minute. Please make sure that you're paying close attention to that and getting those things taken care of. So let's say that you need to create a new account for SurveyMonkey Apply because you've never done so before. When you go to our website, you will see a page that looks similar to this. This has changed, updated a little bit, but you will click this register button. As I mentioned, you would want to create a new account by clicking register, and you're going to want to set up only one account per organization. So don't have one for internship, one for OGP, one for CIG, have them all be the same so that all the organization members can have access to the account and log in as necessary. You'll be asked to complete these steps. You'll create an account, Then you'll get a verification email. And then once all of that is done and your account has actually been verified, once you verify that email address, you will be able to access the eligibility profile. And that eligibility profile needs to be completed before you can access any of our other information. Okay, so when you are, when it asks what type of applicant are you in the eligibility profile, I might have a picture of that coming up. But it's very important that when it asks what type of applicant you are, you should respond to organization to access all of our grants programs. This is because our Civic Art Division has grant opportunities for individual artists. They create SurveyMonkey Apply accounts as well, but they create accounts that mark them as individuals. So when they go into SurveyMonkey Apply, they only see grants from Civic Art that are delineated for individuals. And for us on the grant side, because we only work with organizations or municipalities, you have to mark organization in order to be able to see our grant opportunities, okay? So very, very important. You can tell you've done something wrong if you go into the applications and you see that there's nothing available after you've completed your eligibility profile. You can go back into the eligibility profile at that time and update it. Before you begin looking for an application, please take some time to get familiar with the landing page of your account. So this is what it looks like. As you can tell, this is from my colleague, Laura Guerrero Nieto. You can, if you click this button, your name, which will be your name up at the top, you can click the My Account button, and that will take you to all of the settings for your organization that should you need to update them at any point. Once you click the My Account button, you'll be brought to the My Profile window where you will have a few account management options. Before you begin looking for the application, please take some time to get familiar with the landing page and your account information. As I mentioned, you're clicking My Profile. You can update a photo, first and last name, your email, and your time zone, which is very, very important. Please note that a lot of the times, this time zone is automatically set to UTC time. So you would potentially want to go in and change that to LA time, just so that all of the documents are, all of the email notices and all of those things and everything in the application system is actually reflective of, your time based here in Los Angeles. So here you'll be, let's see. So like I said, you can click on my profile here, notifications. This is where you will decide how you want communications from SurveyMonkey to be delivered. For internship, I don't have too many notifications coming directly from SurveyMonkey Apply. I usually do them myself, but this is where you can control those settings. And then most importantly, this is the eligibility section, as I mentioned before. For important user or for returning users, this is where you can go into update information like your address change, organization legal name changes, any of those kinds of things. And as you can see on this slide, this organization under this test account chose what type of organization? Organization, that's what we want to see. For type of organization, it's 501c3 nonprofit organization, which is great. And then, of course, all of their organization legal information here. So should you need to update this, that's where you can do it. In the event that you are creating an application for the first time, you will need to update this eligibility profile before you can move forward with any of those other applications. So here's what it looks like when you click to edit or do it for the first time. You can see type of organization is selected, the type of organization, are you a 501c3 nonprofit, which is the majority of our organizations, although we do have some municipalities. Once you update all of this information, including executive director info, you can click Save My Profile and all of those settings will be saved for future use. Once you complete the eligibility profile and you have selected, identified yourself as an organization, when you go back to the applications page, you will see the LA County Arts Internship Program with the apply button. It is very, very important that you remember that for the Arts Internship Program, you are submitting an individual application for each internship that your organization is requesting. And it does occasionally happen, unfortunately, where an organization kind of blows past that information and tries to submit for multiple internships in one application. And unfortunately, again, for panelists, that's an easy, sorry, they didn't follow the instructions, and so we're not going to be able to award this internship. So as you can see here on this slide, this organization has opened up 2 applications, which would mean that they are applying for 2 interns. The system is set where you will only be able to open 3, so you can't open a 4th because, of course, the maximum is 3 internships per organization as long as your budget is over $500,000. So please keep that in mind. The way that we have the application set up is that there are certain parts of the application that if you're applying for more than one position, there are certain parts of the application that your organization will only have to fill out once, and in every subsequent application will be able to just refill that information moving forward. So just keep that in mind. Again, if you're submitting for more than one internship, you need to submit a single application for each position that you are requesting, up to a maximum of 3. And so you want to make sure that this number matches the number of applications that you are submitting based off of your organization. And you create them by clicking this green account button. All right, believe it or not, that is the end of my presentation. If you have any final questions, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. What I'm gonna do in the chat, I just put a link to my office hours. So every Monday and Tuesday for the next couple of weeks, I am hosting office hours for organizations to set up some time to chat with me specifically about specific questions that you may have for the internship program. We do it through a website called Calendly. It's very, very simple to schedule office hours with me. So I just dropped that in the chat. And please utilize that if you would like to just have a one-on-one conversation, talk through anything particular. It's already set up on my calendar, so you just go in there, you pick the time and date that works for you, give me a phone number, and I will give you a call and date at that time. So please feel free to use it. My colleagues in OGP and CIAG also have office hours. They typically go underutilized. We're trying to make ourselves as available as possible to you all for questions and so forth. So please make sure that you take advantage of that should your organization need it. Jumping into questions here, I see one. If there's more questions, please go ahead and drop them because we're getting ready to wrap up. So question here, could you speak more to the requirement for providing a laptop or other equipment? Are interns allowed to use their own laptop? We have given guidance in the past to organizations that say, you know what, my intern just really prefers that they use their own laptop. Would that be okay? But in the guidelines in the application process, so where we're at in the process right now, your organization needs to plan to provide, oh, you know what, I just see, thank you for that note. I will do that just now. Your organization needs to be planning to provide the intern with all of the necessary equipment. You cannot assume that an intern will have the equipment necessary, and that's why in the application, we want you to be talking as if the intern will be provided all of the equipment. We can, of course, cross that bridge later on if we need to, but for the purposes of submitting this application and talking about the internship and the planning of the internship, you need to be planning to provide that equipment to the intern. So that is what's in the guidelines. That is what we need you all to plan on. And as even in the organizations that we've made allowances for in the past, you know, it's with the understanding that your organization could be held responsible and liable in the event that intern equipment is damaged or broken or lost or stolen while on company time. So we really do not recommend it. It's not something that we make allowances for all the time. And so in the application, really want you to be planning for and discussing the plan, you know, providing of the intern with all of the necessary equipment that they might need for the program. Thank you for the Calendly note. I realized I sent that link, I think, to the waiting room as opposed to the chat. So the Calendly link is now in the chat. Like I said, please feel free to click on that. Use that to schedule my office hours. It's hopefully easy peasy for everybody involved, and it's already set up on my calendar, so you can request that when necessary. I'm not seeing any questions, any final other questions in the chat. So hopefully that means I preempted a lot of those questions. I just want to say really briefly, it is really an honor to administrate this internship program on behalf of the county. For those of you that have been with us for many years, I'm so grateful of your understanding and flexibility around my capacity. I am a single staff member administrating this program for typically 140 plus grantees and 228 interns. So I think, you know, when I make office hours and when we're pushing y'all into these spaces to ask us questions, a lot of the times it's because, you know, we're very busy, we have a lot going on. The current 22 cycle, as I mentioned earlier, you know, we still have about 30 positions that that are unfilled, and that program is still very much in swing. So thank you in advance for patience around questions, and just be planning accordingly. Unfortunately, because of my capacity, you know, we are not going to be able to swoop in at the 11th hour here to support you all if there's technical issues or misunderstandings around the application. So I really, really appreciate you all making the time and energy to be here today. We are so grateful to our grantees who are partners in this program. I think it's kind of obvious, but we would be nowhere without you all applying for and wanting to host these interns. So we're really, really grateful for your partnership and are really looking forward to some amazing proposals for the upcoming cycle. Thank you for those kind words. I appreciate it. And unless there are any final questions, that concludes my presentation. Again, 11:59 on Wednesday, October 12th is the close of the internship program. There will be no extensions. There will be no forgiveness. There will be no rabbits we can pull out of the hat at the last minute. So please make sure you're getting that application in. If you have questions, schedule office hours with me. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Stay safe, and I will see you on the big wide internet very, very soon. Okay. Thank you, everybody.